All right guys, today we have my boy Orville in the chair and we're gonna do a big chop. Now what we wanna do, he's actually thinking about going all the way down to waves. Right? I always talk about considering the growth pattern when you cut, right? So we're gonna have to find the crown of his head and then start trimming this all down with the grain so that way we could keep the waves in check. They love the big chops, bro. They love the big chops. What we're gonna go ahead and start off with is we need to make sure that we can elevate this hair up off the scalp. You know, we have a lot of hair that we're gonna be working through. So when I start to split the hair here, actually this right here, you could see the hair start to spin around a little bit right here in this area. So that's what I'm gonna focus on right there. So let's see how the Saber 2 handles that bulk. So we're gonna go ahead and start off here with a number 4 guard on this Saber 2 clipper. And this is the clipper, of course, with the echo blade. So we should be able to hear every single hair that's being cut. The reason why you want to start with a bigger guard too is just so you can look at the hair as it's being laid down, right? Feels like 100 pounds lighter already, huh? Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and put a good little brush session into this now. So we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit of mousse down on this here. We're gonna go ahead and do here, guys, is with a little bit of rubbing alcohol so that way we can have a nice, like, high percentage alcohol, get rid of any excess oils, or even just get rid of any excess mousse that we just laid down. You can go ahead and let this area air dry. When's the last time you cut it all off?
Like a year.
Let's go ahead and start working on the tapers. I'd like to go ahead and start off here with the clipper all the way closed, rather than putting in a hard line with like a trimmer. Because kind of like we gone over a few times, man, like, if you go in too deep here with the trimmer, putting in a line like that, you're just gonna give yourself more work to do later at the end of the cut, right? So let's go ahead and put this first line in here with this clipper closed. Now the next fading panel that we can do right here is gonna be with this half guard all the way closed. Let's go ahead and give ourselves some space here so that way we can definitely keep it like a low taper, but still have enough space for the transition. So I don't mind being able to spread out the fade a good bit at the very bottom, because that's where the spread of the fade is the most important in my opinion. Put your head down a little bit. If you choose to compress the fade a little bit more, like when it already starts to get dark, like above the 1.5 guard, for example, then it doesn't look so bad, right? It can actually kind of enhance the look of the taper. But if it's too tight, as it gets down lower, closer to these bald levels, you know, like under the half guard, under the 1 guard. So we can go ahead and clear a little bit of bulk using this 1.5 guard, right? Now I could just keep a nice straight up and down motion here, going up with the grain, and then as far as a little bit of bulk up on top, you can definitely start to lay it down with the grain just a little bit. Just as far as being able to help the transition. But if you keep a nice straight up and down motion, be able to work on that transition. And of course, if you're not super comfortable doing like the straight up and down motion, a little bit of freehanding, you can definitely do this with the 3 guard, the 4, you know, the 4-3-2. You can definitely do that. But if you want to be a little bit more efficient, you may be able to work with a little bit of freehand motions here. And then look, since this is a big chop, guys, I don't mind being like reducing the bulk just a little bit right there along the edge, right here behind the ear. You know, just so, because you want to make sure that that edge can hit, right? This hair has been bulky for so long, it's going to need a little bit before it's fully trained into place. So let's just lighten it up a little bit right here behind the ear. And it's still fully dark, you guys can see there. So that way when we lay it down with that trimmer, it's going to hit perfect. You know what's so funny, bro? And I've noticed this with a few people, is that we cut our hair as the winter approaches. You'd think that we would cut our hair, like we always grow our hair long and hot, but for summer, I've had that happen with so many of my people. I'm just gonna lighten up this small area of transition here. We're gonna start lightening up that line of demarcation that we put in with the half guard, right? So we already cleared space with the 1.5 open. We've already cleared space with the 1.5 closed. So let's go here with this 1 guard. And then we could start to lighten it up right there we're breaking through that line of demarcation. I think a lot of barbers are basically like afraid to move past the line. They're afraid to take the fade too high, but the thing is that if you have any hope of blending it out, you have to be able to break through the line. The way that I did that for the most part, I just went in with the one guard with the lever about halfway closed. You know, if you definitely can go starting with the lever open and then halfway and then close. I just decided to go about halfway because when you learn the right hand motions, you can kind of do a little bit more freehanding, slightly more efficient way to blend. So look, now we're back down here to the half guard and we're starting here with the lever open. Now the thing is that we started this whole process with the half guard all the way closed, right? That was the first line that we made. So if we start open and then we go halfway, remember every time that we go a smaller length, we're working our way lower and lower, closer down to that first line of demarcation that we put in. All right, now we're all the way closed and we're hitting it with the corner here. And now we are right here on that line. And that should blend perfectly into that first line that we put in there. So that's part of why I like to fade the way that I do, guys. It's like so much easier. If you know you start off that line right there with the half guard closed, by the time that you fade back down to it, now at this point, since we made it all the way back down, now look, we just got to hit it just a little bit right here with the clipper closed, maybe a quarter open, you know, just a little bit of lever play at the very bottom just to make sure that it's fully blended out. And then you guys are gonna notice, like with each taper, with each fade that you see on my channel, eventually it'll start sounding a little bit repetitive, right? That you're back down to the half guard. That's what we started the fade with. And that's just pretty much the reason why we start the way that we did. I mean, by the time that we get back down to the half guard all the way closed, it should for the most part be fully blended. It's not so much about memorizing the steps. It's about memorizing the process and understanding the reason why you're doing this. You know what I mean? You're fading down with the purpose of just controlling the gradients as you work your way lower and lower into this fade. So just like with everything that you learn, you're gonna end up making the formula your own. And you don't have to do everything in the exact same order that we do. If anything, I hope that you can learn from my channel is placement, how to be a little more efficient. You know, maybe learn how to skip stuff like the 4 and the 3 guard and the 2 guard, you know, just learning how to skip guards and be able to connect all those different lengths. And now we'll go through this one more time, right? We already did the 1.5 open, the 1.5 close. So let's go ahead and work a little bit here with this 1 guard. I'm gonna go in with it halfway. All right, guys, and now that we went through all those steps, now we can just go ahead and just finesse the very bottom of this fade, man. There's not a whole lot of work to be done, but just with a little bit of lever play. Now with his hair texture in particular, we can go ahead, since he does have like, it's like in between coarse and straight hair, right? So it's like medium waves, right? So I'm still able to come up in here and detail just a little bit here with our blending shears through this transitionary area. Just want to make sure this is looking as blurry as possible before we go ahead and punch in that trimmer line. Bro, did you see the TikTok where a barber clipped the guy's ear with the pair of shears? It was like right up here. Bro, that was a nightmare. That was a freaking nightmare, bro. So you guys don't end up on a TikTok doing the same. Just because there's a huge difference in between rushing and being efficient. Being efficient is respecting my time, respecting his time. He's gonna get a great haircut without having to wait hours. Hours may be exaggerating. Some of y'all might be taking an hour, hour and a half for a haircut. But he has stuff to do today too. I'm not gonna spend all day on his haircut. I'm gonna get me a system that can get him a quality haircut so that way he can get back to his day. All right, guys, so as far as this lineup now, I like to, especially when we're doing a blowout or a taper like this, let's go ahead and start back here, right there on that taper line. And then turn your trimmer to its side and you should be able to ride that curve right up here. So you want this curve to be defined, but you don't want to remove too much hair either, right? You want to make sure that it's a nice sharp curve that complements the taper. But this is a perfect amount of definition without removing too much. So now for this very front hairline, the thing is too, some hair is gonna be removed for sure, but look, when I comb this hair to the side, you see how there's no hair underneath that? So there's also a difference in between removing the bangs and pushing back the hair itself. So now that we've already verified right there that there's no hair growing underneath that, we can go in with full confidence and we can make that first line. And now once you make your first cut right there in the middle, now you take it straight off to, you're gonna pick one side to focus on. And you can use the straight of this blade to pretty much match up to the line that you've already done. Now you're gonna go ahead and return back to the middle, observe it, see how it sits right now, see if you wanna make any adjustments. I like to be able to just kind of drag it down first before I turn it to the side and go ahead and make that, to define that vertical bar. That kind of just helps the bar sit more naturally where it's supposed to be. Sometimes if you jump straight in here, trying to hit the vertical bar like this, sometimes you might chase the line too far in and it may dig in a little bit. We're gonna want a nice hook here. So again, there's a difference in between pushing back the hair and trimming off hangover. So if I define this corner here first, then with the corner of my blade now, I can start to define this curve all the way through. Now that that lineup is done, we can go ahead and clear up. Make sure that you step back and give yourself some space to be able to see it from a distance, because if you're up too close, sometimes you definitely can start to see almost like a mirage, right? Like it starts to look perfect, but if you're not stepping back and looking at it from a small distance back, you're not really seeing the full picture. So just make sure, guys, with any kind of width of grain haircut, any kind of wave cut, just make sure that you always want to catch all these flyaway hairs, right? After you brush the hair down and get it all in the direction that it's supposed to be in, you want to glide this blade over the hair. And the thing is, you want to lead with the heel of the blade. You don't want to lead with the tip of the blade. You know, if you lead with the heel of the blade, it'll kind of help lay down the hair. And truly, any hair that's sticking out will be clipped and really just like give it a nice shape up, a nice smooth finish. Now what happens when you lead with the blade, that's pretty much just like how you prevent yourself from digging in too deep. You know, I feel like if you guys have ever seen, you know, blooper videos or whatever where they like really patch a hole into waves like this, it's probably because they led with the tip of the blade going in like that rather than putting the weight back here. You got to put the weight back there and just let that glide.